Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Insightful Principles. Today on the show, I actually have Hagenguth, and I'm very excited for this conversation because she's actually based in Zug, Switzerland, and it's been a while since I've actually had a global guest here on the show, and she definitely has a very extensive background around blockchain, Web3, and also the just 3D immersive technology surrounding the metaverse. She's also the co-founder and chief operating officer at APPICS, which is a Web3 development company that's also based out in Switzerland. And throughout this episode, we're really just going to touch on Uma's entrepreneurship journey and really discuss how APPICS is empowering people to build their communities in Web3 and also help lowering the barrier of entry where anyone from around the world can have access and benefit from blockchain technology. But with that being said, welcome, Uma. I'm glad that you're here on the show today.
Thanks, Kevin. That was an awesome intro, and I'm excited to be on your podcast. So, yeah.
Of course. No, I'm happy that you're here. But to get things started, I know when I was kind of learning more about your background, you actually have been an entrepreneur since, 15 years old. And I think that's really amazing just to see your journey and to see the growth of what you're doing now. Can you kind of just touch on more of your entrepreneurship journey and just kind of how it has gotten you to where you're at today?
Absolutely. My journey has been definitely not the conventional sort of journey. I went to high school in Germany, Hamburg, and while I did that in 10th grade, my sophomore year, I actually spent in the States. So I did spend some time in the United States. I was in Connecticut, in a little town called Suffield for a year, which is also where sort of my English developed and got better. And then I graduated. And while I was still in high school, through dance actually. So how it is in a lot of places in Europe is that your activities are not connected to school directly. And so I actually had a real big passion for dancing, hip hop, contemporary, and just taking classes. And so funnily enough, that's actually, I would say, how my entrepreneurial journey started, because that's where I met still to this day, he's a mentor for me, but also he's now my co-founder and the CEO of APPICS, and his name is Tony Winchester. And so through dance, because he was a choreographer, and that's how I met him, but choreography was just fun for him on the side, but his actual business was that he was an entrepreneur. And before that, I've never really met an entrepreneur who's built his own businesses and was very much in the tech world. He was mining Bitcoin, Litecoin in 2012-13, so very early. He was a pioneer in that space. And so through him, I sort of gotten familiar with entrepreneurship, what it was. And actually, before I got into the world of blockchain and crypto, we first started a digital agency together with another co-founder who's also now of APPICS, our third co-founder, with Sandra together. So we had a digital marketing agency where we would help businesses and brands transition into Web 2, the internet, social media, right? So that was actually the sort of the first start into entrepreneurship and building a company or building an agency and getting clients and sort of taking over a bunch of different tasks, learning how to build a website, how to gain customers, how to keep them, how to do management and all of that. And from that stage, I got more interested and curious about blockchain and crypto. And so obviously, because he was a miner and had all these big screens and I could see the market and what he was working on, I was always very curious. And so I asked him about it. I had a lot of questions, how does it work? What does it do? And through that, I also got the most important lesson first, which is, what is money? How does the financial system work? And I started becoming more interested about that, because the first real thing, and I always tell that people when they're getting into crypto and blockchain, is that before you start getting into that, which is the solution, you first need to understand the problem. And so my first real lesson was about, how does the monetary system work? The Federal Reserve, the printing of money, debt economy, and all these important things that you're not going to learn in school. I took a real deep dive into and started learning more about it, doing my own research, asking questions. And like I said, I had a mentor who would also help and guide me on that way and journey, which I'm extremely grateful for. But yeah, that was really how I think I've gotten started. And then from there, it was just a buildup of things, right? I got more and more interested, started learning more, and from there developing different businesses. And then eventually we built APPICS, which now is, like you said, a Web3 development company. But we started out as a startup ourselves. We still are in a way. We have a lot of projects that are still in the making. But like our most popular project and product, the APPICS app or platform, which actually launched last year on the App and Play Store, became then our first real, I would say, from scratch built product that we were able to launch, which is a reward-based social media platform on blockchain. But yeah, so that's a little bit about my journey, how I got started in high school when I was 15, and then it transitioned into becoming a stakeholder at APPICS.
Yeah, that's really good. And, I think you really said a very important point, about when you first started learning about just cryptocurrency, learning about, Bitcoin, when that came into existence, and just your knowledge and kind of building your education. I think of it the same way. I think that you have to understand the problems with our monetary system and understanding the manipulation behind our monetary system before you can really understand the solution. And that's always when I try to explain, Bitcoin to people or cryptocurrency, talking about smart contracts, Web3 technology is just really talking about, okay, why do we have issues with, social media now, whether it's the different issues with advertising, how they look at more of the users as the product. I've heard you say that, on various different, conferences. I would love to just kind of get your thoughts on when you first discovered, about Bitcoin and Ethereum, what were some of those interests, like what was some of those the reasons why you were searching out for these solutions, whether it was things that you were learning within your business as an entrepreneur where you wanted to implement this technology, but what were some of those genuine interests of what actually made you want to go into this industry and learn more about blockchain and everything?
Absolutely. So first of all, yeah, Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think I first heard about around 2014. And my first move into it was, again, when I first did research on entrepreneurship in general. Then you do a deep dive into money, why it exists, how do people make it work for themselves, entrepreneurs who still have the same hours in a day like everyone else, but somehow manage to get more in return, but with less time that they spend. So understanding the concept of time and money and work, and also how our entire system was built, right? And back then it was really difficult to talk about, right? It was about a lot of conspiracy theories about even entrepreneurship, about the system. They were called conspiracy theories, and people like David Icke, right, who have tremendous wisdom to share, but were they had the stamp on their back, and it's oh, if you listen to what he says, then you're a conspiracy theorist. But now we've sort of moved into a new age where people are starting to wake up and realize, wait, hey, the things that were said back then by numerous people, there's truth to that. If there's the facts now, the facts are basically out, and we know that the system that was currently built, or the system that currently our economy is built on, is not here to it's not sustainable. That's my point. So the system currently is not sustainable, and we need to find alternative solutions. So that was number one. So when I read the Bitcoin white paper, and that was around 2014, I would say, I was fascinated by the idea of having a digital currency that isn't owned by anyone, that nobody controls, you cannot manipulate, it belongs to the people, and it's actually there to empower people to be able to truly own what they think they currently own, right? Because the whole issue also of ownership, that we think we own something, but in reality, it's just numbers on a screen and you don't own any of it. And you're trusting a bank to take care of it. But if you look at the history, how banks have essentially through every economic collapse have always come out on the top, but the people have come out at the bottom. And we go through these recessions, and it's just a cycle repeating itself over and over again, and it makes the middle class and poor poorer and the rich richer. And so that first light bulb moment when I realized, oh, this is a problem, right? And so then around that same time when I had that sort of the understanding, when I then found out about Bitcoin and Tony explained to me this idea of it, and I started digging more into it, I was like, wow, this is an incredible solution, if it really works. Of course, there's some, you're like first thinking, is it real? How can that, what is it backed by? And I think a lot of people have that question still to this day. Well, some of the doubters will say it's not backed by anything. But if you look at money isn't backed by anything at the moment, right? It used to be backed by gold, and people knew that there were assets behind it. But at the moment, money isn't backed by anything but trust. Whereas cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, when I understood the concept of it, that you have mining machines that perform certain tasks that get rewarded for the work that they do for protecting the system, and you have actual work being performed, and then cryptocurrency is simply the output of it. And as the value of the technology increases, as mass adoption arises, then automatically the cryptocurrency will also rise in value. At least that's, of course, it's not completely coupled, and we can see that. But it also makes sense because when the mining equipment becomes, stays the same or is costs the same, but every 4 years, the Bitcoin halving, right? The amount of Bitcoin that you earn for the same effort that you're putting in becomes half, then it only makes sense that the price goes up. And so there are certain aspects to it that when you understand them, it makes it more and more likely that this system will work and is going to continue to work. So that's just about, Bitcoin. Then when I found out about Ethereum, I was like, oh, wow, because of course Bitcoin is not the best asset maybe to transact with because it's more like a store of value. But the technology of blockchain is like that we can apply to so many different ideas, systems, and Ethereum really did that first. It allowed us to be able to build applications on the blockchain and to be able to transact and use them for real life applications. So Ethereum was a huge milestone. And then other applications came out. And the one that actually got me really into this space was a blockchain called Steam back in the day, that was built by a developer and well-known visionary called Dan Larimer, who also he had the company Block One, or has it, also built EOS and went on to build other technologies. But that first blockchain, Steam, that came out, that gave us the vision and the proof of concept that now we're able to also turn interactions like social media interactions, but also it could be running, it could be watching videos, like whatever it is, you can turn something that you do directly into currency. And so again, there's different blockchains with different use cases that just opened up my realm of possibilities and amazement more and more.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think you're also were speaking to the Cantillon effect as far as how the richer get richer and the poorer get poorer. Meaning the people that are closest to the money are usually the ones that tend to be more profitable, and the ones that are kind of, I don't want to say at the bottom, but may not have investments or they're not aware of this technology, which is why we're having this conversation. They tend to have that wealth gap that we've seen so much. And I think with our monetary system, especially here in America, it creates that wealth gap. Whether you think about inflation and how the CPI here in America is often manipulated. And I think everything that you talk about with people just being more aware of their time and money and what they're deciding to store their value in. I read a book. I don't know if you read this before, but this is kind of like the standard within the industry, but the Bitcoin standard by Savedin Amos, and he talks about time preference, and he's just really saying how we all are making decisions every day of whether we are going to delay gratification or instant gratification. I think oftentimes money is so printed easily here in America that people are constantly, it's an instant gratification society, and it doesn't really talk about the importance. Our system is designed to teach us the importance of savings and really building in technologies that are really going to grow over time. So I think you're hitting on a lot of important points. And that was honestly some of my initial interest too as well, like really finding that this is really a peer-to-peer system that is eliminating the middleman. And when you talk about the supply and demand aspect of, Bitcoin specifically, it just makes sense with the having how the network over time is going to become more valuable.
Right.
But I would love to want to talk a little bit more about APPICS and what was really the purpose of starting it. I know when I kind of was reading about it, I learned that it's a reward based social media platform, and how people are being rewarded, whether it's liking posts, actually posting themselves, commenting. But we'd love to kind of get your expertise on what was kind of the purpose of APPICS and how it exactly works.
Yes, that's a good question. And I think it fits very well to what I talked about before, because, or what you even just said, which is this aspect of people are a lot of times risk averse when it comes to investing money, right? But they're not so risk averse when it comes to investing their time. They spend countless hours on social media. You scroll through the internet. Sometimes you speak with people that maybe don't deserve your time and energy. And we're not as careful with our time as we are with our money. But the amount of or the value of your time is infinitely more valuable than money, right? Because money you can give out, you can spend, you can make more of, but time, like, there's a limit to it for all of us. And if we're able to find a way to include the things that we already do and then turn that into currency and have an exchange of time and currency in a way that is decentralized, because the community decides on what's valuable and then how that value is distributed. So to put it in a more practical sense, or in a more practical way, if you look at the current platforms that are out there, right? And we were a marketing agency back then, so we saw that through the influencers that we were building, the brands we were helping to get seen online. When you're looking at social media, you could tell that not only is there a huge problem with the value distribution, because number one, the people don't get anything, right? If you're spending time on social media, there's no return whatsoever, unless, yes, you built a huge following. Then you're able to sell the attention that you've accumulated of your followers. You can sell that to advertisers so that the platform, or so that you have an asset, right? So then your followers become your asset and you sell that as a product. But also that's where influencers have gotten a lot of scrutiny for, because like they're selling out basically their audience that they've built, and there's a level of trust. So even that trust is getting broken in a lot of times. But they're reliant on it because it's the only way to make money from those platforms. But what about just the users that are making the platform valuable in the first place? Because the influencers and the celebrities or people that have amassed those followers, even they wouldn't be able to make anything from it if there was no community, right? You need people on the platform, but those people that are not celebrities, they don't get anything in return. And so the idea behind APPICS was, number one, to build a platform that is a very easy gateway and entry into blockchain, where you don't need to understand the technology in order to earn cryptocurrency. So you don't need to invest money in the first place. And I think that like tremendously lowers the barrier to entry, because if you don't have to invest any of your money and you just have to spend a little bit of time that you're already spending on social media, but here you get rewarded for it, like there's no reason for you not to try it out, right? So that was number one. And then the other one is like the distribution of value, how that happens. And that is, so when you post on APPICS, which is, the platform is right now built similar to Instagram, where you can scroll through content, you can share photos, you can share videos. But instead of liking pictures and just giving out meaningless likes, you upvote. You can upvote and you can comment. And every action is like a transaction on our blockchain that then turns into our own native cryptocurrency. So we as a company, essentially, just like a big corporation and platform like Facebook or now Meta or Twitter, they all have shares in the company. But we not only have shares as a company, but we also have our own cryptocurrency and a pool of tokens that are valuable. And the more people that come in, obviously, the more valuable that pool becomes. And that pool of tokens gets distributed to every single post, depending on how many people vote on a particular piece of content and with how much voting power. So essentially, to break it down, if you, Kevin, you share a photo on APPICS and you're brand new, you're a new user, you don't have any followers, but then even just 3 people find your picture and they have already a lot of stake. They hold a lot of APPICS tokens because either they've been on the platform for a long time or because they've invested. And now through their placing of one upvote on your picture, after 30 days, 65% of the value that got generated automatically goes into your wallet, into your integrated wallet, and then 25% is distributed among the voters. So even for voting on content, you get something in return. So it's not like Patreon where if I'm voting, I'm giving out something to you, I'm paying you for or my like triggers a payout from my wallet to yours, but it comes from the independent creators or company pool. And then 10% goes back into the ecosystem. So we've developed a system where essentially everyone on the platform gets rewarded, and it's through a stake-weighted mechanism that is decentralized because people are able to vote on it and decide on that value of distribution. So yeah, that's essentially how APPICS works. And it does sound very complicated. If I would be listening to this for the first time, it's like, oh, stake weighted and voting mechanism. But really, it's really simple. If you are on Instagram and you're using it, then I know that you're also able to use APPICS because it's that simple. And I've tested it with people like my mom, for example, who I sometimes help to send out an email. She definitely is not techie at all. She doesn't have any form of social media, but she's on APPICS and posts regularly, like her cooking or when she sees something like nature, whatever. And yeah, she's already she has a little community of followers and people that enjoy the content. And again, there's nothing to lose, right? You just share it. And it's interesting because it's that much more genuine, the conversations. And the same also applies for comments as well. So even your comments get rewarded too. And so that's really why we built it, because for one, it lowers the barrier to entry. Number two, it rewards people no matter where you're from too, because it's like it doesn't matter what your location you're in. That's one thing we also saw as a digital marketing agency, that it was very unfair value distribution on those platforms, that when you are advertising on YouTube or other places in the world, the views, if you're in Northern America, are very different from if you're from India or Philippines or places in Africa or in Asia or wherever you are. It just differs a lot, and there's an unfair distribution of attention and payouts. And so we're trying to bridge that as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And that was actually what I wanted to transition into, was talking about the reasons why people should use the decentralized social media platform, because a lot of things that come to my mind is, just the centralization of whether you're looking at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. For so long, you think about the people that actually control these platforms and really just control the advertising, where it kind of almost dilutes the platform, where it doesn't seem like the people that are really starting to build the following, the only people that probably are able to make money from these platforms is if they already have a large following. So I definitely think when I think about the importance of having a decentralized social media, it really kind of gets away from the advertising model that we've seen for so long. And then also I think about the privacy aspect and how it doesn't matter in these platforms. It seems like they're tracking you all the time. The privacy and the security aspect, I think, is a challenge, and why we need a solution like what you all are developing. And, I just think there's a lot of different elements, but I would love to kind of just get your thoughts on, why do you think people need to start paying more attention to a decentralized social media, and why they need to be aware of decentralized platforms that they're already currently using now?
Yeah, what you mentioned there is a huge point. The privacy aspect, right? And like your data and how it's being used. So on APPICS right now, we've gone back to like a chronological order where your feed is literally you just see the content of people that you follow. There's no like, ads that are being put in your face that you don't want to see just because you've had a conversation. Maybe you've spoken with someone about a topic and then all of a sudden an ad pops up, and without your permission, right? That's the main point. So it's not like we're saying on APPICS there's not going to be advertising at all, but it's going to be with the permission of the users. So if you're for example, if you want to see ads, or in the future, right now we don't even have the technology to do this, but in the future, right, if you wanted to see ads, maybe when you talk about something and then it pops up, but then you want to get paid for if you're seeing that ad, you want to maybe get a portion of the ad spend or whatever, right? Because it's just fair, because you're part of the transaction. So things like that, right, where you're at least aware of, and you can decide if you want to be part, if you want to be the product, and if you want to be part of that concept or not. And if you don't want to share your data, then you can simply turn it off, right? And the other thing is, right now on APPICS we have different categories like fashion, gaming, sports, wisdom, purpose, nature, animals. And if you click on those categories, there's a banner at the top. And only when you click on discover are you going to get into the advertising space. So it's like everything should be the company or the platform in the first place should be social. It should be social media. It should be a social and secure environment where you feel safe and you feel protected and you feel free, and it should be about the user in the first place. But right now the platforms are mainly about the advertisers and the company and the platform, and the users are the product being moved around. Your attention is being traded, but you don't gain anything from it, right? Except that you're being exploited, and it's being advertised as free. But nothing in this world is for free, right? And so in the world where there is no decentralization in Web3. So in the Web3 world, again, it's a transaction, but you're the time that you're giving and you're spending is actually being rewarded. So again, it's a transaction, but you're part of it. And in the other world, in the world that we're currently still in, the transaction takes place without you. And so we're trying to move into this new space where everything that happens is more transparent, it's more fair, it's more for the users, it's more for the people, it's empowering, and everything else comes second, right? Yes, there's money aspects to it, and there's ways to bring in advertisers, but why should the users not be a part of that? And so I think that is the real change that we're trying to see here and make happen. And why I also think APPICS is right now in a very interesting place, and people definitely should check it out, because there's always a transition happening. Like, we need to keep in mind that technology is an evolution. So with technology, we've never gone backwards, right? It's always gone forward and forward and forward. When there was MySpace and I don't know, we used MSN, and there was even a German website like SchülerVZ, maybe. I don't know if you probably have never heard of it, but like MSN, I'm sure you know, and you know MySpace and these platforms. And when those platforms were popular, nobody ever thought they were going to go away, right? Like, you thought, oh, this is it. But then all of a sudden it shifted. Then there was Facebook, and now it's Instagram. Now, not even Instagram, now it's TikTok, right? So it's like we're moving and moving, and it's an ever-growing space. But the question is, what direction are we moving into? And are we taking control, or are we letting the platforms, the companies decide what's next? And I think that's an important question everyone should ask themselves, because I think the main reason why people stay is because obviously their friends are there. But if you're friends and you decide that we want an alternative, and right now alternatives like APPICS are being developed, then definitely look into it, because the future, again, can look different ways. But I think right now is a really important time that we, the people, start taking more responsibility and look into, what do we want the future to look like? Do we want it to be controlled and more of our data being sold to companies and ads being displayed, and we're the product? Or maybe right now is a good time to break out of that and use platforms and applications with technologies like blockchain or other decentralized technologies that give us more freedom and that actually serve us and don't just take from us.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And, I think it also kind of speaks to just having the control of the users, it being put on the users as far as they have the control of it, they deciding if they want to have advertising or, how they want their experience to be. And I think another element of just decentralized social media is people want more freedom of speech. I think we've seen so much in the last year, whether people getting knocked off of platforms, whether it's Twitter, different notable figures that, really can't voice their opinions. And I think there still has to be discretion of what can be said. I don't want to say what can be said and what can't be said, but there still has to be a standard of rules. You don't want people coming on saying reckless things. But how do you all kind of deal with those challenges as far as, you want to have people to have the freedom to say what they want to say, but also making sure that there's a line where, we're not going to make sure people are just coming on saying all types of crazy stuff. How do you all kind of balance that, with those challenges?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I don't think we have the full answer. This is a topic that definitely is going to, evolve as we grow, and our solutions are going to evolve and come in. I can tell you how we handle it right now. And by the way, when you said about, censorship and everything and accounts being banned, my account last week got my Twitter account got permanently banned, and I don't know why, and I haven't gotten a response.
Shadow ban. People be telling me about the shadow ban.
Yeah, crazy. But literally completely banned. And even on other platforms, whenever it's I mentioned something about crypto on TikTok, my views go down, and it's very frustrating. That there is this very obvious censorship and freedom of speech being suppressed. So on APPICS, the way we, of course, want the platform to be is that you can voice your opinion, you can voice your thoughts, you can express yourself freely. Now, obviously, we do not want to tolerate on the platform things that are disturbing, that are violent, that are harassing, that are just far away from a collaborative and beautiful community where we communicate with respect to each other, right? That's the main thing. And so in order to keep the community and to keep APPICS in a way where people are staying, having respectful conversations with each other and voicing their opinions, but not it getting out of hand, and also showcasing pictures and videos of maybe things that you don't want to see on the platform, that are too violent, that are not coherent with our terms and conditions. So we have a downvoting system, and what that means is just like you can upvote content so that it gets seen more, so that it goes to the trending page, so that it earns rewards. We also have a downvoting system. So with that same stake and power that you have on the platform, you can also use it to sort of downvote content if you don't think that it should get rewarded in that sense. And so, of course, now you can say, well, then people can just downvote content they don't like. But again, it's a decentralized voting system. So, yes, you will maybe have people that downvote content for the wrong reasons, but then you'll have other people who will upvote it again for other reasons. And so we're trying to keep it as community-based as possible. We still have moderators that go in and also filter content and look for content that does not comply with the terms and conditions. But anything that you see is, or that is within the terms and conditions, is just about keeping the community a safe place. So, like you said, things that are very obvious for anyone, that it is harmful to the to the community. But if it's not harmful content, if it is just your own opinion that might be controversial, then that is absolutely fine, and it does not go against any terms and conditions. So it would never be downvoted by one of our moderators. But at the same time, of course, people can down and upvote on the platform as they choose, right? So that is up to the community. But what we've seen is that it's actually worked really well, because all of a sudden, when there is value attached to it, people become more realistic about what content deserves to, have a huge vote, and maybe others that shouldn't, other pieces of content. So that self-regulation, I think, is a really good system. I don't think it's perfect. Of course, there will always be things that, that come with it when you have that form of freedom. But at the same time, I do think it's the direction we should move into and find more ways to make sure that the right type of content gets seen and gets rewarded, and other content, does get downvoted if it doesn't comply. But yeah, I think that's as we grow, also those mechanisms will adjust, and we will have more ways to make sure that balance is kept.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think at the end of the day, it's allowing the market decide. The people in the community are going to decide what they think is valuable content,
Right.
or content that is not as good or that is detrimental, to the community, to the network. So I think in a sense, kind of the bad actors or the people that are coming on there to just whatever, say whatever they want to say. To an extent, it may not work to the best of their benefit, because other people in the community are going to say this isn't something that should be allowed. So I think letting the market decide is one thing that could kind of, overcome that. But I do want to also get into a conversation on, I've done reading on other decentralized social platforms that have more of a Bitcoin based blockchain. And I know I'm not sure what particular blockchain that you all use. Do you all use an Ethereum
Telos.
blockchain? Telos?
No, it's
Okay.
an EOS, so it's like a sister chain of EOS. It's called Telos,
Telos.
and yes,
Okay.
so right.
Yeah. So I guess I want to know, as far as, it's always interesting when you hear just the opposing arguments. When I talk to people that have more of a Bitcoin focus, where they think that, okay, building on that type of layer 1 technology and then implementing layer 2 with the Lightning Network, that tends to be the most decentralized and secure. But then when you use other blockchains, it may give you more scalability, but then you're having a trade-off on either the decentralization or the security. So I would love to get your thoughts on, like, what is your pushback on that, as far as if someone is telling you, well, I think that a Bitcoin based blockchain is better for a social network than something that's more of like, a Telos blockchain. What are the advantages and the disadvantages? I would just love to learn from someone that's actually utilizing a different blockchain. What would you say are just kind of some of your pushback, on that?
I mean, I can tell you already now, Bitcoin is out, and because it doesn't work. And even Ethereum, when people say, why not build on Ethereum? It's a bigger community, it's a well-known blockchain. It simply does not work for a social network that you want to scale, because you need, if you think about it, the amount of transactions that you need when people, upvote something, they comment. So you need an amount of transactions you need on a social network an amount of transactions, and that blockchain needs to be able to handle it. So with Telos, for example, we have about 10,000 transactions per second. And it's a layer 1 delegated proof of stake network. So you always have people working on it and adjusting it. It's its own layer 1. So we built our own custom smart contract off of that. And we needed customizations, features that allow us not only to scale, but also to have this the reward distribution the way we wanted it to, right? To have to be able to distribute it with the right amount of inflation, with the right amount of, you need all these different parameters. So you need to make sure that it works in coherence with the blockchain, because if updates happen on that blockchain, let's say on the Ethereum network, it will affect your chain. It will affect your smart contract. So you need to think a bit long term and into the future. What happens if? And with Ethereum or Bitcoin, it's just simply you cannot scale on those blockchains applications into the millions of users. And if that's your goal, you will need to look into alternative blockchains. And what was interesting to us was that in the beginning we were based on Steem, and Steem was the first blockchain that came out in 2016 that launched together with and pegged or tied to a social network or blogging site, I would say. And my team and I, we were one of the first users or one of the early users of that platform. And we saw the system working and how it was designed. And it was specifically designed to fit a social network. So when you're building something, you need to look at what are you trying to achieve and what blockchain is actually built for that. And so we were first building on Steemit, then there was a whole like internal issue that went on with the founders of Steemit. So they split, and then the blockchain or the company got sold to Tron, to Justin Sun. But what happened out of that was we then looked for an alternative. Where else could we move? And EOS was actually the closest thing to Steem that was able to sustain that amount of transactions, that also had the aspect of account creation, that you're able to create that many accounts essentially for free. Also huge, the burning rate and everything. So Steem was the second option, or no, from Steem, we're looking at EOS, but then Telos came to us and said, hey, we have, the development, we could work like an in-house and like a blockchain partner and like a tech team. And that was more important to us, that we knew we also had developers that we can directly work with, that can tweak our smart contract. And we don't always have to go, like, for example, EOS is a huge chain with a huge community, but it's that much more complicated to push through changes or to get adaptations going. Same with Ethereum is even broader. So it's really about what is it that you're trying to accomplish. And for us, we knew we needed account creation. We need as many transactions per second as possible so that we can scale. Then they had a green aspect as well of, the mission was to go CO2 neutral, which has been accomplished with the EVM so far. So there were a lot of aspects that we liked about it, and also their team. Basically they were able to provide the solution that we needed. So for us, it wasn't like, oh, we need to go with the most popular blockchain, but we need to go with a team that is able to build a smart contract that can just simply do what we needed to do for our social network to function.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think, it really depends on what the goal is, of the company. Like you said, for yourself, having to do that many transactions, it requires having to use a blockchain that's going to allow you to take that much volume. Whereas, that's the challenges with Bitcoin. It doesn't, the Lightning Network, there's a lot of advancements with that where it is making transactions be a lot faster, but it's as far as, like you said, all of the other elements of the interaction on the social media platform that requires, a lot of computation. And, if you don't have a blockchain that can be able to facilitate that much power, it could be, very hard. So, yeah, that's definitely a great point. And, I definitely did also want to kind of just get your thoughts on when you think about just decentralized identifiers and people being able to control their own web nodes and just the payment infrastructure of where we're seeing social media going. What exactly is your vision as far as what you're seeing with APPICS and all of these different elements of how it's helping improve the user experience when it comes to using social media?
For sure. One word that, again, comes into mind is just interoperability. And interoperability meaning, and this also goes back to the previous question, which was about, why did we decide to go with Telos? Well, our vision is not that we're on this Telos native blockchain, just on Telos forever. No, actually, we just launched on EVM, and EVM is like a bridge to Ethereum and to different chains and to different cryptocurrencies. So the reward system might be on Telos native, but that doesn't mean we can't have a wallet that also is on like Avalanche or Polygon and like different chains. It connects to different networks. So the vision really is, I think, for us, but it should also be for more networks, should be that we have a system that creates interoperability. And what that means is that I don't need to have a new login. I don't need to have a new key and everything to use different applications, but I can be part of one ecosystem. I can do my gaming here. I can enter the metaverse. I can earn my tokens. I can then use APPICS all with the same login, and I can seamlessly switch between different chains and earn different tokens or cryptocurrencies. And so that's really where I see the future, where my hope is for APPICS as well, is that as we're progressing, and one of the things, we've been actively working on is our metaverse experiences and hosting different events there. And we're like looking to partner with every crypto project and also different NFTs projects, and just have all of that be part of an ecosystem. And when you earn it, you can then display it again on APPICS. You can mint your tokens, and you don't have to do that on the Telos network. You can, but you can also do it on Ethereum or other networks, and that will still be displayed in the APPICS app, right? So I think blockchain technology should move more into the direction, or blockchain-based projects, I should say, where you're looking at where you're truly looking at how can I bridge to different networks? How can I make our community and our ecosystem as interoperable as possible? Because that's the future. When it's not about just being on one chain or being a maxi with your project, I don't think that is what the future should look like, because it creates even more confusion for the end user. Then they have to get familiar with all these different chains and all these different wallets. And if we can simplify it and bring it down to, I have my one wallet here with all these different coins and all blockchains. I'm not sure what, you don't need to know which blockchains you're using, but you're just able to see all of your assets in one place, and you're able to move between different worlds and applications. I think that's when we will actually see mass adoption happen. And so that's what we're working towards with APPICS as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think just being open to new ideas, I talk to a lot of Bitcoin maxis, and, they're stuck in their ways, and it's nothing wrong of, having a strong opinion on how you feel and how it separates from the broad crypto space. Cause, I know a lot of the stuff we've seen with FTX, has put I don't want to say it's put because I understand what the technology is. So a lot of people that don't understand what the technology is, they think that is a representation of what crypto is, which is not. That was complete, manipulation, and just someone that was just really over leveraged with a lot of things. But I wonder, when you're collaborating and when you're talking to people that want to utilize this social media platform, do you have any pushback of people that have talked about things with FTX and having this uncertainty? How do you kind of, because I know that it's going to come, but how do you kind of like battle against that with telling them that, this is completely separate from that incident, and just kind of explaining the importance of this technology to more people?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I'm not trying to convince anyone. I think when it has to come from you to have some form of interest and an open mind, right? You can't force an ignorant mind to have an open mind. It's just, but I do think at some point it's going to reach everyone. And with FTX, for example, that is a prime example of centralization within a decentralized environment, seemingly decentralized environment, right? Yes, we're talking about crypto and blockchain, but within the space we're in, within Web3 and blockchain, you do have centralized points of control. And those have had hacks before. Even the Mt. Gox situation, for people that have been in the space, long enough, you will know that, yes, these things happen, right? There's huge amounts of money being lost and hacks, but this is not the blockchain that's gotten hacked. It's an exchange. It's a centralized company where there was fraud going on, right? But it was not coming from crypto or blockchain. That is independent. It was people, again, trusting people. It's people trusting a company. And when there's that trust involved, then it's not really different from a bank, right? Because again, it's you trust a company to be a store of your value. But just like that saying, and I just did an interview with DaVinci J15 for my podcast, which is going to come out, and he actually said, he said it again. I was like, "Can you give us one advice?" And he said, if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto, or something like that, right? Not your keys, not your coins. And that whole phrase, I think people need to take more seriously and understand what that means, because to be honestly speaking, I do hold crypto also on exchanges, but when I do, I know the risk of it, and I know that if something happens with the exchange, it was my fault. It's like then with that knowledge and with that responsibility, with taking that responsibility, you can become more aware of, where do I actually place my assets? And if you are going through centralized points of control, then there's always that risk. If you just hold it on a ledger, then it's, that risk doesn't apply to you. Because if something happens with an exchange, then you're not affected. Your coins are not affected. Your tokens are not affected. So I think that's what we need to look at. And yes, right now on APPICS, for example, you do have, your, of course, you log in just like you would on any other platform, Google, Facebook, or whatever. So that's your normal setup. But then when you create your wallet, we actually don't store your keys. So that is with you. If you lose your keys, you've lost your, access to your wallet, and we can't restore it. And obviously that's also a risk for people because they need to trust themselves. But if you're able to rely on yourself and learn what it means to protect your own assets, to make sure that you save your master key, if you're able to do that, then it's very different, because then you can use the front end application, but you don't run that risk of your coins being lost, right? And we actually also implemented a mechanism so that when you have staked tokens in your wallet, you cannot power them down all at once. So in the case that somebody would get your password to log into the account, they don't have access, or they can't have access to all of your staked tokens all at once, because there's a powering down period. But you'll learn about that as you go. But the important thing is to definitely separate between blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, and then the companies that are building on those technologies.
No, that's really that's spot on. And Da Vinci, I love his content. I've watched him plenty of times. But you're definitely right. I think the case of FTX, like you said, it was more of the centralization and people, trusting a company. And it really has probably taught a lot of people about the importance of self-custody. And even if you are going to store your stuff on these exchanges, like you said, being aware of the risk and knowing how you can mitigate risk by, just making sure that you're taking control of your private keys. But I definitely do like that feature about the power down, where if someone did get access to it, they can't be able to have access to your coins on the platform. So that's a very interesting feature. But just as we're coming to a close, I kind of wanted to just get your thoughts on how you all are implementing NFTs, because I think that that's another important aspect of blockchain and what we're seeing, just the development with Web3 and how it's giving people the ability to be able to have those value adds whenever they're using the platform, and having these different incentives that can allow them to be able to just, whether they decide they want to hold the NFT and allow it to accumulate over time, or if they decide they may want to sell it down the line, or use it for any, value added incentives on the platform. So how are you all exactly using NFTs, and what do you see the future, of that as well?
Yeah, so NFTs, I think, are an interesting topic, because obviously the hype of NFTs now went down with the bear market and everything. The bubble has sort of burst, which does not mean that NFT technology is gone. So the technology, or the functionality of non-fungible tokens, I think the possibility and potential of that we have not tapped into yet. So we saw the first wave of, monkey JPEGs and, the Bored Ape Yacht Club and these big NFTs being promoted by celebrities, which brought a lot of hype. It brought a lot of attention to the mainstream world. It got a lot of artists to release their own NFTs collection, which is, amazing to do. It's an awesome, cool first use case. But I do think that the future goes way beyond, right? It's going to... With NFTs, what you can do is so much. For one, it is going to be, I think, a main currency within the immersive worlds, within metaverses. It's going to allow you to get tickets to certain events, to certain venues. It's going to give you access. It can hold, it can hold your assets or values that maybe your avatar carries. NFTs can also represent physical items, right, in the real world. In the future, I think we're going to see even contracts and other things within the real estate world. There's NFT use cases that are being tested right now. What I'm also excited about is the whole aspect of being able to have multiple people to own one asset, right? So that it's basically split ownership, or multiple people having ownership of one asset, whereas before, for example, if you wanted to own a supercar or a watch or something like a collectible that grows in value, you have to bring all that investment, right? But with NFTs, for example, you could assign that ownership to multiple people, and all of you are going to grow your portfolio, and as it gains in value, every single one of the beneficiaries is going to benefit from it. And so those are use cases I'm excited about, and that being tied to the real world, so real world assets as well as virtual assets. And so I think that intersection is truly interesting, and we're going to see a lot more of. So I think, again, NFTs is definitely not over. I think it's just the very beginning. Like, we had a first run, which has now cooled down, and now we're going to see slowly a buildup of real world actual use cases. And I'm excited to see where NFT technology goes. For sure, we are going to implement it. For one, we've built an NFT marketplace that we're going to, tie and build into the APPICS platforms, that you're able to also mint your content in form of NFTs, then sell it and buy content as well. And the other one is going to be the implementation within the metaverse, so that we're able to display NFTs of brands, of charities, of solo people and artists. There's definitely a lot to come.
Yeah, NFTs is a very powerful, technology. I think, like you said, the hype has kind of died down after the year 2022. But at the same time, like you said, just the aspect of the fractional ownership of the NFT and how it can represent a physical asset. Just think about, a popular building in New York, and someone has it as an NFT, and everyone has ownership in that particular building. It just kind of, in a sense, think that kind of lowers the barrier of entry as well with NFTs, how it allows everyone to get involved and to have ownership in something. So, I definitely been looking at more creative ways of how to use NFTs in financial planning. I think there has been conversations like what you said about real estate, how, a deed to a contract to a home, or maybe a life insurance policy. That's kind of some things I think about when it comes to how we could implement in the financial planning space. But yeah, we still have a long way to go. But I think it's important to start learning this technology now, and really just, self-educating yourself and really, networking and getting around the people that are a little bit knowledgeable more than you. But Uma, I would love for you to just kind of share with everyone how they can get in touch with you, maybe learn more about APPICS, and just kind of reaching out and connecting.
Absolutely. So first of all, if you want to, of course, you're free to check out APPICS for yourself. Right now, the website is just appics.com. You can read a little bit more about it, or you can find it on the App Store and Google Play Store, and it's just APPICS, APPICS. And we're also on all platforms with APPICS. Usually it's appics.official on Twitter, on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever you are, we should have an account there. And me personally, you can also reach on Telegram. We also have a community chat on Telegram that you can join and ask questions about APPICS. You can also join the Telegram channel and say that you listen to this podcast, and then tag me. And if you have any questions, you can also message me directly. So my username there is Uma_HG, I think. And that's also me on Instagram and other platforms. So yeah, I would love to see you, of course, on APPICS. When you do create an account on APPICS, feel free to let me know. Then I can delegate or send you some APX tokens so that you can get started. And would love to definitely see everyone on APPICS and get their feedback.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. I downloaded the app. I just got to create an account.
Awesome.
But yeah, we definitely will be in touch, and I'll put all of her information, everyone, in the show notes, so that way you can reach out to her. But Uma, I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I think it'd be impactful for everyone.
Thank you so much for having me on, Kevin. Really appreciated this conversation. It was nice chatting, and thank you everyone for listening. So we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.